Hey everyone, Egman here with another video. Today we have not a top 10 Tuesday, but instead a top 20 Tuesday. Yes, we're going to do this in two parts, two top 10 lists on Crossroads, the third set released. And let me just say, this is like one of the wildest sets this card game has seen. A lot of these cards are fantastic. A lot of them are still being used today, and really just kind of marked a turning point for kind of like the focus of what the game was going to be. And a lot of people are, will say set 2 was kind of like where it was slow and grindy, and then set 3 came out and it just turned the game on its head, for better or for worse for a lot of people. But this is definitely when the game started to get big, and to me it kind of marked a point of like Bandai thinking, oh, this isn't going to be just a game that's kind of like a gimmick for the show. This is we made a really good game, a really good system, and this is when we're going to start getting some buck wild things happening. So without further ado, we've got the first 10 of the top 20, so 20 through 11, and let's just start off with number 20. Starting off the list with number 20, we've got March of the Great Ape. I had a really hard time placing this card on the list, but I definitely think it deserves to be on this list, since it was just so powerful and pretty much carried an archetype for a while. But it just definitely hasn't done anything the last couple months, or even last couple of formats or years. So what does it do? It's an active main. Choose up to 2 Great Ape cards with energy cost 4 or less from your hand and play them, then draw 2 cards. So just the fact that it's a very good value play for what, 1 energy, or sorry, for 4 energy you get to play 8 energy worth of stuff. Additionally, you get to replace the cards you draw. So you start off with you kind of go like +1 in your hand, and you get to go +4 in energy with this card. So a lot of good stuff going on with it. And when you could also play this for 2 energy with Mecha Frieza, which technically made it a +3. This card was really, really good, and which is why Mecha Frieza was so good. You could just play this card super cheap, and then this just cheated out 2 big boys for nothing, and you get 3 new cards in your hand as well. So that's why this card was pretty good back then. And then once Mecha Frieza got banned, this was still such a good value, but for 4 energy, you were probably you had to make sure you weren't dead. It was too slow for the meta for a while, and then after that, they just didn't make any more Great Ape cards. So I think it's not a bad card, and I think there are some ways you can still make the Great Ape deck work nowadays. But this definitely wasn't the powerhouse it was during the first couple months with Mecha Frieza, and that's why I'm thinking it's deserves to be at number 20. So there's that, and let's move on to the next one. We've got the only Android 13 leader, Thirst for Destruction Android 13. This is a pretty old leader, and for a while, and still kind of currently, it's kind of a clunky leader. But they've been printing so much more support over the last year for it with new Android 14s and 15s, and then with the successor cards as well. I don't think this is necessarily as bad, but it's definitely the worst card in your deck in a lot of times. Sure, you can do the being able to awaken at 6 life or less if you have an Android 14, 15 in your drop area. This is a really cool effect in being able to awaken early, and then you're able to have a 15k crit swinger every turn that also gets you draw a card and everything. So I think it definitely has some stuff, and I definitely have seen some fringe play from it in the last couple months. But this card was so bad for 2 years, and it couldn't really carry its archetype. And even though it was an Android leader, which was a really good kind of tag for, especially after set 2 came out, where Perfect Cell was a thing and you wanted to be able to run an Android leader. This was an Android leader if you wanted to. It just didn't do anything. Android 17, 18 was just so much better and more consistent. And but I don't know, this guy's definitely been getting a little bit better. I hope it maybe gets rebooted, or there's another Android 13 leader, just because they've been investing some energy into his archetype. And it is a lot of fun though, and I think it's a really cool budget leader as well. And we'll see where he goes. Next up, we've got Hyper Evolution Super Saiyan 4 Son Goku, the secret rare from this set. This wasn't actually for a while. This was the best secret rare, and I guess it was only the second secret rare. But this card wasn't too bad when it first came out, and it was very expensive since there was a Frieza archetype that let you go into be able to go into this guy into turn 2 if you need to, which was actually kind of consistent and kind of scary. But it's an EX default for 1 red. You place 2 cards from your hand, you drop her on a red Son Goku GT with an A cost of 6 or more. And then when this card attacks, it gains plus 5k power for the duration of the turn. Then if this card's power is 6k or more, it deals 1 damage to your opponent's life. And it also has this activate for to place 2 red cards from your hand into your drop area, switch this card to active mode. So a lot of text, but this definitely was kind of like one of the cooler secret rares. It was more, I don't know, more powerful than the Vegito one we got in set 2. And it was, it was a pretty good succession to go into it, going into the 3-drop that turns into a 5-drop, and then after that you EX evolve the 5-drop into the 7-drop, and then go into this guy. So it wasn't impossible. There's definitely ways to get out, and it was a nice little line. Kind of like this was kind of like a successor archetype in a lot of ways too, like with all these EX evolve chains. So I felt like it was a good boss monster. And pretty neat, but it never really saw like a lot of success after the first couple weeks of the set dropping, especially when Mecha Freeze was banned. There wasn't a lot of people playing this card anymore, but it definitely had a little bit of history where it was good, and it's still, I think, like not the worst card, but it just doesn't have any protection that I think more modern kind of secret rares have. And if this card just gets put into rest mode, or like you can still use the 2 red cards to switch back to active mode and everything, but this card's, I think, just a little bit too fragile to base your entire deck around, and it just hasn't been seeing play for the last couple years. Next up, we've got Twisted Justice Fuse Zamasu. So this is a 7-drop Zamasu. You can Union Batara for 5 on a Goku Black and Zamasu, which is kind of weird, especially since like all the Goku Black and Zamasu stuff were blue before this. So this is like the first like green kind of archetype for it. But it's double strike and indestructible. In auto, when you play this card, choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards or up to 2 cards in your opponent's hand. Your opponent places all of the chosen cards in their drop area. So this was kind of like an okay card, but like I don't know, it was just a little bit too resource heavy for what the effects are. Right, you gotta use 2 of your battle cards and 5 energy to get this guy out, and you only you can blow up 2 cards in your opponent's field, which are bleh. Especially since it didn't get around barrier, and barrier was starting to be was a new keyword in this set. And then also only 2 cards in your opponent's hand, like that was just nothing. Especially like against like Mecha Frieza, even if you survived to turn 5, which guess what, you weren't. They always had like an infinite large amount of hand. But definitely a really strong card. Once the new card that cheated it out, you can get this guy out for like 3 energy, which is, guess what, a lot better. And it's a 25k indestructible double strike, right? So this card can just like put pressure. If you put this on like turn 2, like on turn 4, it's threatening 6 damage, and your opponent really can't get rid of this. It's very tricky to get rid of. There are ways to get rid of it, of course, and I think there have been more and more ways to get rid of indestructible cards, but with the more recent stuff, and I know it's been seeing a little bit of success in the last couple of months, and that's pretty cool to see, especially since this card was so bad on release and didn't see any play. But I think now that you can kind of cheat it out and kind of fits in this hand destruction archetype, that it's a little bit better, and we'll probably see a little bit more play in the future. Next up, we've got Ultra Instinct Sign Son Goku. This was a favorite card for myself, and I know a lot of others when this card was released. It's just a very interesting card, and also this had a kind of, it could get around barrier, which was kind of neat. But this is an EX evolve for 2 blue. You place 1 card from your hand in your drop area on a blue Son Goku with any cost of 5 or more. Triple strike. Your opponent can't combo. Permanent. Your opponent can't combo for the duration of this card's battle, which is a really good effect, and also is increasingly good because with arrival and stuff now, like this kind of effect on a card just helps out, countering arrival techniques a lot more. And then also auto, when a card evolves into this card, return all of your opponent's battle cards to their owner's hand, which also gets around barrier, which is such an important thing to say. Just being able to get around your opponent's cards that, if your opponent had a big board of apes and they had the King Vegeta out that gave them all barrier, there's no way to get rid of them, right? It was either this card or playing Chain Attack Zeno. So Ultra Instinct Sign Son Goku was a great card that could get rid of that in the early stages of this meta, and then it's been seeing a lot of experimental play since then. A lot of people have been trying to get to work for a while, especially when we started to get into like the Shenron leaders, especially like Child's Wish helped get a bunch of targets that could go, evolve into the 5-drop, which you can go into the 7-drop here. So, and then giving this like triple attack, triple strike feels really, really good because they can't, they have to have negates, or they just, literally can't combo out of it. So a really cool card, and I think this, the fact that it made a lot of archetypes and decks around it, I think, shows how good it is. And I think, as long as, it can make sense, people, keep building around it. Especially like the fact that it can return all of your opponent's battle cards to their owner's hand is just a great tool for breaking boards. If we're in a meta where, breaking the boards is more important. Next up, we've got Explosive Spirit, Son Goku. This was, so I don't know. This card was kind of only good for one card, and maybe we'll talk about that card later. But yeah, so this is a blocker barrier, and auto when you play this card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode and KO that card. So that's kind of good. And then also at the end of your turn, switch this card to active mode. So a couple of things with this card. One, being able to just KO something when you play it is great. And let's say like you had a card that you could play this during like a battle step, like your combo phase. If your opponent was swinging on in with something that didn't have barrier, you could just play this Explosive Spirit Son Goku, and it would just pop their card, which I don't like, just completely changed the game forever. And this card was super good and was used a lot because of that interaction of being able to literally stop any attack. And not only that, but it would be after your opponent kind of invested additional cards in their hand to combo up. So if they combo their hand on a card and you just play this Explosive Spirit Son Goku and pop the card, they just pretty much lost the game. And even if they didn't, like this card just being put out and for 0 energy, just playing this card to pop something, it doesn't have to be anything big, and then having a blocker barrier out on your side of the board is really fantastic. So, and it's just good for like removing cards on the field too. Like when you swing on it, you can swing on something small, pop it, and then at the end of the turn you untap this card, and then it has blocker and barrier. So just a really nifty card. It's not being seen as much anymore, and I think it's just because we have additional effects to go around this. This might be better at like 2 energy. This might be seeing play, but at 3 I think it's a little bit too expensive, and I don't think you can play it from the during the combo step anymore. So that's why I'm putting it here. It's still like a terribly good card, and I think it can see play every once in a while, but it's definitely not at the same level without its combo power or its partner in crime legal anymore. We've got the Ultimate Evil Majin Buu. This was a very cool boss monster that people kept going back to, especially during the Shenron days. This was a very good kind of card to get out there. And also when we had, there were kind of 2 decks. There's a Majin Shenron, like with Child's Wish, you get the 3 drop out that goes into this guy eventually. And then also there was the Agents of Destruction deck. Like this could be like an alternate win condition for your deck as well. So it's an EX Evolve for just 1 blue, and you place 2 cards from your hand in your drop area for a Majin Buu with an AD cost of 5 or more. Triple strike, and then also when a card evolves in this card, switches card to active mode, it gains plus 3k power for the duration of the turn. So just the fact that this was a 60k triple strike is fantastic. The fact that it like EX evolves into active mode is great. And then if you have like a Shenron leader and then it becomes a 60k triple strike triple attack, that is super bad news for your opponent. It's just so good. It has just so much power. And during a time when there wasn't as much like interaction during the battle step, this was just a monster to get around and like defend against. So really cool boss monster. I think this was this is moderately well designed. The fact that you have to discard 2 cards from your hand wasn't as much, I think, of a cost as they were expecting for, especially since like Shenron decks and other decks are able to just like hand size are so much bigger than they used to be. It's really easy to make really big hand sizes now compared to kind of what's set 2 through 4 were they're kind of like mid range, but now that you just generate so much hand size. So that just means it's a lot easier to play this card, and I still think like it's just a good ender for the game. Next up, we've got Planet M2. This is a really weird card, but it saw a lot of success for a long time, and people, I think, still side it or consider siding it, depending on meta choices and everything. But it's a field card, and auto when you play this card is placed in a battle area. If your leader card is Dr. Mew, draw 1, which rarely is the case, honestly, but it has this active battle, switch this card to rest mode. If it's your turn, choose up to one of your opponent's leader cards or battle cards. It loses minus 5k power for duration of the battle. And don't care about this part because that's not part of the ruling anymore. But The fact that you're able to just kind of control the board, and it was just like really good for just KOing a bunch of small things. The fact that this card would easily make its value after 3 turns. So if you play this turn 1, and then swing, you give it minus 5k, so that's minus 5k for 1 energy. And the next turn you do it, so that's minus 10k for 2 energy. And then after that, I think it starts to really gain its value. And just the fact that it can pop things, I think is fantastic as well. So this has just kind of been around for a really long time. Anytime like you need to kind of get help getting rid of like 1-drops and that kind of stuff, I think this is a good card for that, and can really just help you get an edge on your opponent. Like, it's just such great value for really grinding out the game, and especially like if you're playing games with like Chain Attack Zeno in your deck. This card stays on the board if you Chain Attack Zeno, which just means you have like 1 extra card that survives the wipe as well. So I think this is still a good card. I think people can still decide with it if they like it, and I think it's always like a neat kind of niche option for people who need it. Next up, we've got Haru Haru, the Attacker Majin. So this was a really interesting card. It's a 15k crit that says auto when you play this card, place up to 2 cards atop your deck into your drop area. And when you play this card, if your opponent's leader card is green or yellow, choose up to 4 of your energy and switch them to active mode. So this is kind of like one of the first like specific leader color hate cards that we've had, and this was a really powerful one. Being able to just in general, any deck can play this because there's no energy restriction, and this was pretty much in sideboards and still in sideboards since release. So if there are a lot of good green and yellow decks running around, just put these 2 of these cards in your sideboard. You've got like 2 15k crit attackers in your deck, and like the fact that it untaps 4 energy when you play this card that's only costing 3 energy, it's just such a big boon for that. And tie it in when Child's Wish was still a card. You could Child's Wish for 0 energy, get this from your drop area, and then you just untap 4 energy for nothing. Like that's super crazy. And of course, like it's very specific to having an opponent with a green or yellow leader. But I think like this was a powerful card, and this has depending on the meta, seen a lot of play, and I think it will continue to see a lot of play. Especially when we had the multicolor leaders as well, like surge leaders. This card just became so much better because now that there's 2 colors, it's hard not to have that. Because like this could be used against Piccolo and also Surge Q. Like both of those leaders have one of those colors, so this is always live against those 2. And I think that's a really big boon as well. So great card, good for applying pressure, and just like a really good value card as well. And if there any future ways to cheat this card out later, like this is a perfect card to kind of take advantage of that as well. And to round off the list today, we've got Unstoppable Ambition Super Saiyan Khalifa. This was such a good card for release. Just the fact that it was a 2-drop 20k was already overpowered, but then has 2 opponents. One, your battle cards can't be KO'd by your own skills, which means it helps out the kill. And then also, your battle cards can't be placed in the drop area by your own skills as well. And auto, when you play this card, choose 1 card from your life and add it to your hand. So just the fact that this helped you Self-Awakening, which was more helpful than hurtful in a lot of ways, was good. The fact that you could get this card for free off of the 2-drop Kaba from the Dash Pack. This was, seeing play for such a long time, and people still kind of look back at it as a good card. However, now that there's more Khalifas, especially some that are like 4 and 5 drops that the 2-drop Kaba can still get, this card is not as desirable and is probably like one of the worst choices for Khalifas nowadays. But for a long time, like Veggies was such a powerful archetype. Being able to run this 20k, once again, a 2-drop 20k is very powerful, and anymore they're just either have a negative effect or they're just skillless in general. So just the fact that this card still exists in that way just shows the power there. And I still think it the pure mono green Veggies, I think, is still a cool and strong deck, and it was definitely the strong deck when especially it was the deck to beat after Mecha Frieza got banned. So very powerful, and definitely a key element to that deck. And that's going to be it for today. So this is the first 10 of the top 20 of Cross Worlds. Let me know what you guys think of my choices for here, and also some guesses for perhaps what next week will bring. I think those will be a little bit more obvious and straightforward, but I would say this has definitely been a hard choice on determining what I feel each card deserves to be placed, and just being on this list as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next week for the other top 10 of this Crossworld set.